Federal marshals are seizing Trump's assets after judge delivers a devastating ruling. Federal marshals are preparing to seize Donald Trump's most iconic properties right now, and what just happened in court should send shockwaves through the entire American political system, because a judge didn't just reject Trump's legal arguments. She absolutely destroyed them in language so blunt, it has legal experts stunned. This is not another delay. This is not another appeal that buys more time. This is the moment where decades of alleged fraud are catching up with the former president, and the consequences are about to become very real, very visible, and potentially catastrophic for everything Trump has built. Let me walk you through what just happened and why this could be the beginning of the end for the Trump empire. The ruling came down from a New York appellate judge who was reviewing Trump's emergency request to stop the seizure of his assets while he appeals a massive fraud judgment, nearly $500 million, that he owes the state of New York after a court found him liable for systematically inflating the value of his properties for decades. Trump's legal team argued that forcing him to pay or post a bond before his appeal was resolved would cause irreparable harm, that his constitutional rights were being violated, and that the entire case was politically motivated persecution designed to destroy him. The judge rejected every single argument, and the language she used was strikingly blunt by judicial standards. She emphasized that Trump was found liable for fraud after a full trial in which he was given ample opportunity to present evidence and defend himself. She made clear the judgment was no ambush. It was the foreseeable result of conduct the court had already determined to be persistent, egregious, and deliberate. On the claim of irreparable harm, the judge was especially direct. Any harm, she wrote, was entirely self-inflicted. If Trump wanted to avoid asset seizure, he could have refrained from committing fraud or posted the legally required bond to pause enforcement. His failure to secure a bond was not the court's responsibility. Then the ruling turned sharper, addressing the political persecution argument head-on. The judge rejected the notion that New York's Attorney General, courts, and judicial system were engaged in a coordinated conspiracy against Trump. She wrote that the claim was not only unsupported by evidence but deeply offensive to the integrity of the justice system. She underscored that Trump had received full procedural protections, that the evidence of fraud was overwhelming, and that reframing a legal defeat as political persecution was precisely the kind of bad faith argument the court had come to expect from Trump's legal team. According to MSNBC's legal correspondent, the judge essentially accused Trump of trying to weaponize the appeals process, using procedural motions not to seek justice but to delay accountability indefinitely. This is devastating because it strips away every defense Trump has been using for years: the claim of persecution, the argument that the system is rigged, the insistence that he's being treated unfairly, all of it rejected by a court in language so pointed it suggests rare judicial frustration. But here's what makes this truly catastrophic for Trump. It's not just that he lost the legal argument, it's that his inability to secure a bond is essentially the market confirming his fraud. Let me explain why that matters. Trump was found liable for fraud because he consistently inflated his asset values to banks and insurers. Now he's arguing those same assets are so valuable that posting them as a bond would cause irreparable harm. Yet when he tried to use those properties to secure a bond, no one would accept them at his stated values. The judge made it clear Trump's inability to obtain a bond was essentially the market confirming his fraud. If his properties had truly been worth what he claimed, securing a bond would have been straightforward. Think about the implications of that. For decades, Trump has portrayed himself as a multi-billionaire, leveraging that image to secure loans, deals, and political credibility. Now a court has found much of that was fraudulent, and the fact that he cannot secure a bond is the market confirming the court's judgment. This isn't just a legal setback, it's a confrontation with the core of Trump's identity. So what happens next? Federal marshals are now moving forward with the asset seizure process. Trump could lose some of his most valuable and iconic holdings. 40 Wall Street, 7 Springs, and potentially parts of Trump Tower could be seized and sold to satisfy the judgment. These aren't merely financial assets, they are core pieces of Trump's brand and public identity. Losing them doesn't just hit the wallet, it dismantles the image he has spent 50 years cultivating. And it gets worse. According to financial analysts, many of Trump's properties operate on significant debt. If his marquee properties start being seized, lenders on other properties may trigger default provisions and accelerate debt repayment. Trump could face a cascade of financial crises across his entire portfolio, What starts as losing a few buildings to satisfy one judgment could spiral into a complete collapse of the Trump organization as various lenders and creditors move to protect their interests. Now let's talk about what this means politically, because this is where it becomes absolutely explosive. Trump's entire political brand is built around being a successful businessman, a deal maker who knows how to create wealth. Seeing his properties seized to satisfy a fraud judgment directly undercuts that narrative. There's a big difference between claiming the legal system is rigged and actually having your assets taken because financial institutions refuse to accept your inflated valuations. That's not political persecution. That's the market calling out fraud. Republican primary rivals and Democratic campaigns will seize on this. Images of federal marshals entering Trump Tower with court orders to seize assets are politically powerful and damaging. They reinforce criticisms that Trump's business acumen was more style than substance. Voters who supported him because they believed he was a savvy billionaire may start questioning that belief when they see his empire dismantled under court supervision. Looking ahead to the general election, this creates a concrete, hard-to-spin visual. Trump's usual strategy of claiming persecution, rallying his base, and fundraising off legal woes faces a challenge when assets are actually being seized. His core supporters may remain loyal, but persuadable voters in swing states may see these seizures as evidence that the smoke around his wealth reflects a real fire. And this situation is creating absolute chaos within MAGA circles, exposing deep divisions over how to respond. One faction, led by figures like Steve Bannon, is framing this as a deep state attack. They argue that Trump should refuse to cooperate, daring authorities to remove him from his properties. Bannon even urged supporters to surround Trump Tower and physically block any seizure attempts. At the same time, another wing of MAGA is quietly confronting reality. Some Republican strategists and former Trump administration officials are privately acknowledging that his failure to secure a bond highlights serious issues with his actual finances. They worry that the image of Trump as a successful businessman is being dismantled in real time and that the fallout threatens the entire Republican brand. Trump himself took to Truth Social, posting in all caps to call the judge corrupt, label the Attorney General a political hack, and claim that Democrats want to do to all successful conservatives what's happening to him. He's trying to frame his personal, legal, and financial disaster as a broader political narrative of persecution. But the problem is that the facts keep undermining that narrative. It's difficult to claim persecution when the evidence shows decades of systematic fraud, and the only reason assets are being seized is because no private institution will underwrite a bond using those same assets as collateral. This raises a fundamental question: can the legal system actually hold powerful individuals accountable for fraud, or does wealth, political influence, and a loyal following create a kind of immunity? If Trump can commit systematic fraud for decades, build an empire on inflated valuations, run for president on that record, and then avoid consequences by claiming persecution, what does that signal? It tells every fraudster that with enough power and noise, the rules might not apply to them. The judge's ruling and the ongoing asset seizures are providing a clear answer. No one is above the law. Political support doesn't shield you from accountability. And if you can't post a bond because no one believes your asset valuations, that's the market speaking, confirming the fraud, not enacting persecution. Here's the bottom line. Donald Trump is now seeing federal marshals start the process of seizing his properties to satisfy a massive fraud judgment. The judge didn't just reject his legal arguments, she shredded them, labeling his claims frivolous and insulting to the court. This isn't merely about losing some buildings, it's the systematic dismantling of Trump's carefully cultivated image as a successful businessman. His inability to secure a bond shows that the market agrees with the court. His valuations were fraudulent. When your own assets can't even back a bond because no financial institution trusts your numbers, you're not a victim of political persecution. You're confronting the consequences of your own dishonesty. And when a judge uses unusually pointed language to dismiss your arguments, you've lost more than the legal fight. You've lost credibility. The asset seizure process is ongoing, with additional properties likely being evaluated and prepared for takeover. Trump's appeals continue, but without a bond to halt enforcement, the legal pressure remains immediate. And politically, the image of Trump Tower or other properties potentially changing hands will resonate through the 2024 election in ways that are difficult to fully predict. The stakes have never been higher, and the financial consequences have never been more real. This is the moment where decades of alleged fraud meet actual accountability, and the entire world is watching to see if the rule of law still means something in America. Federal marshals are seizing Trump's assets after judge delivers a devastating ruling. Federal marshals are preparing to seize Donald Trump's most iconic properties right now, and what just happened in court should send shockwaves through the entire American political system, because a judge didn't just reject Trump's legal arguments, she absolutely destroyed them in language so blunt it has legal experts stunned.